In today's world, it seems to go without saying that religion and violence are intimately connected. Everybody knows that most wars and conflicts are started because of religion. Except they're not. And it's not even close. Despite how ingrained this idea is in our society, a look to the history of war shows a completely different story. What is the truth about religion and violence? And maybe more important, where did the myth that most wars are caused by religion come from? This is Catholicism in Focus. Religion is, quote, the most prolific force of violence in our history. So writes Sam Harris in the 2004 book, The End of Faith, but so says the majority of society. This is just common knowledge. But common knowledge isn't always accurate knowledge. Let's look at the facts. In 2005, Charles Phillips and Alan Axelrod published a 3-volume work called The Encyclopedia of Wars. In it, they meticulously counted and categorized every known violent conflict in history, coming up with a list of 1,763 such events. Of these, they list 121 as religious wars. For those without a calculator, that's about 7% of the conflicts, a very small number. This is not to say that only 121 conflicts in all of human history had religious components to them, only that 121, by their estimation, had religion as its primary motivation. If we look a little more broadly and include, say, colonial conquest, acts of violence that weren't motivated directly by religion, but had a strong religious component to them, that brings the number up to 282, or just under 16%. By their own admission, none of this data is indisputable, and different scholars will have different ways of categorizing each conflict. But if we double, even triple that total, the number is still not above 50%. The common notion that most wars and conflicts are caused by religion is simply not true. Of course, quantity isn't all that matters. Quality should be considered as well. It's possible that a large number of insignificant conflicts inflate the non-religious category, and if we were to look at only the most catastrophic of wars, it might tell a different story. This was the question that Matthew White sought to answer in 2012. In his book, The Great Big Book of Horrible Things, White focuses only on the 100 worst atrocities of human history. Which events caused the most death and destruction, and what effect did religion have on them? According to his estimation, of the 100, 11 were related to religion, only one of which was near the top of the list. This should not shock us. When we look to the major wars of history, we see that religion is not the cause. Between 70 and 85 million people died because of World War II. World War I claimed about 40 million lives. More than 25 million died as a result of the Manchu quest of China. Even in ancient and medieval times, when religion played a much more significant role in society, the most deadly conflicts had nothing to do with religion. The Mongol invasions, the 100 Years' War, the Roman Wars, Punic Wars, Gallic Wars, Cimbrian Wars, and every other war that Rome engaged in. In each of these events, the motivating cause was not religion, but land, wealth, and ultimately power. If you were to add up all the wars with a religious component to them, the Crusades, the battles between Protestants and Catholics, the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine, even the Taiping Rebellion, which claimed the lives of about 20 or 30 million people, this number would be greatly overshadowed by the wars that had nothing to do with religion. The common notion that religion is the most destructive force in society is simply not true. But it is still a destructive force, right? Even if it's not the only or leading cause of violence, you cannot deny the many, many wars fought over religion. Or can we? In looking at wars specifically caused by or related to religion, it's important to make two distinctions. The first is that no so-called religious war consists of only religious motivations. Religion clearly played a central role to something like the Crusades. It was the Pope and the bishops that called for the conquest, and many of the warriors went to battle to atone for past sins. There were Christians on one side and Muslims on the other. This seems pretty clear. But this is not how the war initially started. Before Western Christians got involved and branded it a holy war, the conflict wasn't between Christians and Muslims, but between the Byzantine Empire and the Seljuk Empire over land and control of historic sites. Religion obviously played a part even then, but it wasn't over religion alone. The Western Church experienced much of the same. It may have started as a religious war, but much of the individual conquests were led by dukes and kings, mercenaries and profiteers, men who may have used religion to motivate their soldiers, but were ultimately interested in plundering ancient cities. This point can be applied to most of the so-called religious wars. While the French Wars of Religion and the 30 Years' War were primarily conflicts between Catholics and Protestants, there were French Catholics who fought against Austrian Catholics because nationalism was often a factor. Religion obviously plays a role in the Israel-Palestine conflict, but so too does land and politics. Even the Taiping Rebellion, the deadliest religious war in history, resulting from an emperor trying to convert a nation to Christianity, included far more factors than just religion. A war may have religious motivations, but that doesn't mean that it is fought solely over religion. This is because, the second distinction we want to make, not all things done in the name of religion are reflective of the religion itself. Sometimes, believe it or not, people twist and manipulate religion for very unreligious reasons. The fact of the matter is that Christianity is a peaceful religion. When we look to the words of Jesus and the commands he gave to his followers, there is no logical way to justify unprovoked violence, oppression, pillaging, or forced conversions. And so when this happens, is it the fault of the religion, which properly understood doesn't support such things, or the person or people that uses religion to justify atrocities? Surely the religion can't be responsible for what people do with it, in the same way that a car manufacturer can't be held responsible if someone uses a car to mow down pedestrians. That's not what it was designed for. No matter what way you look at it, the idea that religion causes violence is just an untrue statement. Even in the most clear of cases, the situation is always more complicated than it appears, the result of many factors mixed together. Which may lead some to wonder, how did we get here? If it is such an obviously false statement that no reputable historian ascribes to today, how is it that this notion is widely accepted in society? The answer, which shouldn't surprise anyone, is that it was a story made up in the time of enlightenment to belittle religion. In the 17th and 18th centuries, world leaders were trying to free themselves from the authority of the church, and philosophers were developing frameworks separate from theology. Together, they were trying to create a new world order separate from religion. And so what they did, according to renowned Catholic theologian William Cavanaugh, was promote a creation myth for the modern state, one in which the church represented violence and the Enlightenment represented peace. See this war over here that's been lasting for 30 years? How Catholics are on one side and Protestants are on the other? It couldn't be because of greedy rulers wanting autonomy to build their own kingdoms and so pitting people against each other. It's because of religion. In the irony of ironies, Enlightenment thinkers, wishing to progress the world, twisted and elaborated history to create a worldview on which to build a society because they believed that contemporary society was created by men who twisted and elaborated history to build a worldview on which to build society. And what has it got us ever since? Well, some of the worst wars in human history. And yet, now more than 3 centuries from the start of the Enlightenment, myths like these continue to be told. Religion is violent. Religion is against science. Religion is only for backwards people who don't know how to read. Come on. At what point are we going to look back as a society and realize that so much of what we take as common knowledge is just the fabrication of a generation with a bone to pick with Christianity? At some point, I hope, we will be able to look to history with a sober disposition, free from the biases and agendas of the day, and see the truth. Some religious people did bad things, but religion itself is not bad for society. In fact, even in a modern pluralistic world, it may still have a lot of wisdom to offer.